Hello, everyone. I'm Nicholas, and I'm happy today on my jumping detox interview to have someone who is really involved since many years in the question of mercury intoxications and biological dentistry. So I'm very happy today to have on our show Dr. Blanche Grube. So hello, Dr. Grube, and thank
Hello.
you to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
very
you.
happy. I'm very happy because I know you since many years. I never had the opportunity to have a talk with you. And last time with Anita Vazquez, that she was also on my jumping interview. She told me a lot about you, and I know that you also wrote a book with her, and
Right.
also because we need your help to understand more about biological dentistry. And yeah, I think you did a lot, and you still continue. Are you still working today in a cabinet or in a clinic?
I'm still working, but I guess you could call me semi-retired. I no longer work during the 4 months of winter. My office is in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which probably gets just as much snow as you do in Switzerland.
Yes.
So the winters are brutal. It's very cold. There's a lot of snow. There's a lot of ice. So I've chosen now to come down to Florida for the winter, and it gives me a chance to catch up on my research, catch up on my reading, and catch up on some sunshine. I love it down here.
Yeah,
This
great.
is the for me now. This is the best time of year.
So tell me, when did you start about this whole question about health, detox, mercury, and all those biological dentistry?
Well, we're going to have to go back in history a little bit, approximately 30 years, a little over 30 years to be exact. Um, I was I was I was a conventional dentist. I started working first as a dental assistant for 10 years. And then I was convinced by a dentist that I would make a very good dentist. So I said, "Mm,
Mhm.
okay, I'll give that a try." And I went to dental school. I graduated. I became a conventional dentist. I did for 10 years all of the things that I preach against now. So I was practicing as a conventional dentist for 10 years. And then one day, one of my patients came into the office and gave me an article to read about mercury toxicity. She asked me if I could be open minded. Sure, I can be open minded. I'll read the article. I read the article. I was amazed. I just could not believe what I was reading because it was the opposite of everything that I had been taught in dental school. In
Mhm.
dental school, I was taught that mercury, once mixed with powder and put inside a tooth, it remained inert. Inert means no harm. It just stays there. It doesn't move, it doesn't come out, it doesn't hurt you. It's inert. That's wonderful. So that's what we were taught in dental school. They actually went through the details and told us about all the different phases that mercury goes through while it becomes inert. So interesting, very interesting. Keep that word in mind because later on became aware that maybe it's not so inert, but at that point, I was already working. I was busy trying to make a living, trying to raise three children, two cats, a husband, a dental practice. I was a busy person. I really didn't do that much research or reading. So she brings me this article to read and says, "Would you mind looking at it?" Yeah. Wow. This article said mercury was not inert. Not only was it not inert, there were there were parts of the article that were written by medical doctors, psychologists, physiologists, neurologists, biochemists, you name it. Every specialty in medicine and science had participated in some way in this article, and their names were in the bibliography. And I thought, this is so bizarre. I'm looking at this bibliography in the back of this magazine. All of these very smart people are telling me how mercury affects different parts of the body, but there's not a single dentist talking about mercury. The bibliography did not have the name of a single dentist. So then started becoming very suspicious, and I thought, well, maybe this is just a bogus article. How do you know that when somebody published something, how do you know that it's truth?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do you know? That's a good question. This is so bizarre. So I took the article to a local library for doctors, and I asked the librarian if she could just take a look at it and tell me if all of these articles are real or are they make believe. Just tell me that. She said, "Yeah, sure, sure, doctor." And 2 days later, she calls me up and she says, "Doctor, I have all your articles for you." I said, "I didn't ask for any articles. I didn't want to read anything." She says, "Well, I thought this was very interesting. I thought you might be interested." So she gives me a stack of about 2 inches thick of all of these actual scientific journals, actual scientific peer reviewed articles talking about mercury and how it affects different parts of the body, how it affects the brain, how it affects the thyroid, how it affects your digestion, how it affects your nervous system, on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was still in amazement because this still went against everything I was not taught in dental school or taught in dental school. It was just very confusing. So I called up Dr. Hal Huggins. I said, "You know what? I'm gonna call him up because his name was in the back of the article. The woman had written the article was actually a medical doctor who worked for Dr. Huggins." So I called him up and I said, "Listen, my name is Dr. Blanche Grube. I've been a dentist for 10 years. I'm in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I would really like to learn about this mercury toxicity you talk about." And it wasn't Dr. Huggins, it was one of his workers. The worker said to me, "Oh, that's wonderful. You have to come out to Colorado." What? No, 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 no. I have, like I said before, I have 3 children, 2 cats, a husband, a dental practice. I'm not going out to Colorado. So, you know what? Why don't you just send me a book? That's really all I need. He says, "Well, we will send you a book, but you really, really need to come out to Colorado." Hmm. Well, I told my husband about this, and he said, "Well, you know what? You might learn something a little bit more, a little bit better. Go to Colorado." Okay. So now I'm trying to think how old I was at this point. I think I was 42. I had never traveled anywhere by myself. And now I find myself on a plane going to Colorado. When I get there, I walk into the classroom. They slapped a tourniquet on my arm and immediately began to take blood from my arm. I thought, this is so bizarre. I just wanted to learn about mercury. Why are you taking blood from my arm? And I began to think maybe I joined a cult. What did I get myself involved with? I've never been in a dental class where they took blood from your arm. Never. Right? So the nurse said to me, "Well, she says, Dr. Huggins likes to look at everybody's blood chemistry. So we take the blood from you right away." Okay, great. And finally, they took the blood, and I got to sit down and listen to class. And Dr. Huggins came in and talked about mercury for 3 full days. Mercury,
Wow.
mercury, mercury. We talked about the chemistry of mercury. He talked about how it affects the body. He talked about how it's so difficult to detoxify. He talked about how he thought this whole mercury issue was actually satanic. And we're scientists. We're like, "Oh, come on, how
Mm-hmm.
can you say it's satanic?" And he said, "Well," he says, "when they put something in a person's body that changes the way they think and changes the way they think about themselves and ultimately want to commit suicide, that's satanic."
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, I think he's got a point there.
Yeah.
On the fourth day, I've had 3 days of mercury. On the fourth day, Our blood test came back from Colorado Springs General Hospital. He put my blood test up on an overhead projector for the younger people in this audience. Probably have never heard of an overhead projector. But in the old days, you used to make slides, and that's how you would see things in a classroom. It was very different than what we're doing now. Now everything is PowerPoint. Well, he put my blood up on an overhead projector, and he said, "Whose blood is this?" And I very gently raised my hand. I said, "It's mine." He says, "Ooh, we got a sick puppy here. We got a sick puppy here. Blanche, how many years have you had cancer?"
Wow.
What? What? That's a simple question. How many years have you had cancer? Where do you see cancer?
I'm 42.
He says, yeah. He says, well, they circled it in red. They took a magic pen and really made big, very large circles around the numbers. And I looked at it and I squinted my eyes. I said, well, that says 1% meta. Okay, what does that mean? He says, oh, you don't know too much about leukemia, do you? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, that's 1% metablastic cells. I said, okay, well, good. It's a low number, 1%. That's low. Always the optimist. Hal said, well, 1% you're sick, 2% you're in the hospital, and 3% you're dead. Okay, now he has my attention. He really does. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, so gee, is this mercury in my body and in my mouth? Has this caused cancer in me? And Hal said to me, looks me straight in the face, and he says, so Blanche, how many root canals do you have in your head? Oh boy, root canals. We've been talking about mercury for 3 days now.
Hmm.
Why is this man asking me how many root canals I have in my head? And I looked at him and I said, I have 5. Why do you say that? He said, well, I've never seen a patient with cancer that didn't have root canals or cavitations. Later on, we'll talk about what cavitations are. And he said, I've never seen somebody. He said, so you're going to get those root canals taken out right away, right? Hell no. I'm still a New Yorker. I said, no. I said, no, 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 no. I said, look, I have 32 teeth. I'm very proud of the fact I have 32 teeth. And I plan on going to my grave with 32 teeth. He stares me straight in the face and says, yep, that's exactly what you're doing, sooner rather than later. He turned around, walked down the steps, and continued his lecture.
Wow.
And I sat there in utter confusion. And I thought, what is going on here? I came here to learn about mercury. I just found out I have cancer. And this man's telling me I have 5 root canal teeth to take out. Ay, ay, ay. I was in absolute confusion. So that was my introduction to biological dentistry. He invited me to come back the next month for
Hmm.
an advanced class. I thought the advanced class was going to be about composites. Those are the white materials that dentists put in people's mouths. I thought he was going to teach us how to put composites in. Nope. The advanced class was all about root canals. And then I began to see how incredibly toxic root canals are. Then he invited me to come back the following month. And I did. I came back the next month, and that was all about blood chemistries and learning about how you can look at a blood chemistry test and see if the patient is sick or becoming sick, whether they know it or not. Hal Huggins always used to say, the blood chemistry changes first,
Hmm.
then the patient gets symptoms. And the reverse is true. When you do the full dental revision the right way and you get the patient on a good detoxification program with supplements, then the chemistry changes again and later they feel better. So it's very interesting. You always see what's going on with somebody if you look at their blood chemistry first. And so I've been looking at blood chemistries now for over 30 years, and Dr. Huggins was absolutely right. The chemistry changes first, and then you get sick.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction. And by this time now, I've been studying with Hal Huggins for 3 months, and I finally became convinced yes, I needed to get my mercury fillings taken out. I needed to get my root canals taken out. And so I waited until after the Christmas holiday, and I told my husband that I was going to Colorado to have all this work done. So I went to Colorado Springs. I spent almost a month there. I had my mercury fillings removed. And when I wasn't sitting in the dental chair, I was following Dr. Huggins around with a little notebook and writing down and taking down everything that he said. So they removed my mercury fillings first because that's what the protocol says to do. Well, this was very interesting for me because I went to Colorado to have this work done because I wanted to get rid of my cancer. When my mercury fillings were removed, right after the first section, all of a sudden my brain changed.
Mm.
And now I I used to have this droning hum in the back of my head. And I had it since the time I was 4 years old. So I always thought that this is the way I am, or at least everybody is. And
Mhm.
that droning sound kept me from being able to read. I couldn't read a sentence completely without going back to the beginning. I couldn't read a paragraph without having full comprehension. I had none of that. So I was actually put in remedial reading in third grade. I never really graduated from remedial reading. So what Dr. Huggins would call that brain fog. I didn't know I had
Exactly.
brain fog.
Hmm.
I just thought I couldn't read and I was a slow reader and that was my problem. Well, the first quadrant, that means the first section of mercury fillings were removed. I woke up the next morning in Colorado Springs. All of a sudden, the silence was deafening. I was I couldn't believe how quiet it was. Where was the droning I had in my head? It was gone. I grabbed a magazine as quick as I could, a journal, and I quickly started reading through the journal. Oh my lord, I can read. Look at this. I can read for the first time in my life. I read a whole paragraph. I read a whole article. Not once did I have to go back to the beginning. I was so excited. I could not wait for the clinic to open up at 8 o'clock. I could not wait for Dr. Huggins to come in so I could tell him the good news. Dr. Huggins, guess what? He said, what, Blanche? I can read. He thought that was an odd statement to make. He said, what do you mean you can read? Of course you can read. I said, no, you don't understand. I couldn't read well before. I said, but I didn't know I had brain fog. It wasn't until the mercury fillings were removed that now I can read. I said, so you know what? I don't care if my cancer doesn't go away. I'm going to spend the next 2 months or last few months of my life, whatever I have left, I'm going to spend it reading. I'm so happy. He said, oh, come on, Blanche. Don't worry about it. He says, your cancer is going to go away also. I didn't believe him. I didn't believe him. Well, lo and behold, they finally got all my fillings out. And by the way, I had 18 mercury fillings. That's a
18.
lot.
Wow. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
18. Yes. Then they took out my root canal teeth. And when they did that, they they took another blood test shortly afterwards and found out that I had 0 metablastic cells, which means my leukemia was gone. Absolutely gone. And so I continued to do blood tests when I came home. I would do a blood test every month. Then I
Hmm.
would do it every 2 months. I was very nervous. I wanted to make sure that I was going to live and I was going to be able to raise my 3 little children. And I kept doing blood tests. And then after a couple of years, I said, you know what? I think I only need to do one a year. And so that's to this day, now 30 years later, I still do one blood test a year. And my white blood cell count is perfect. My red blood cell count is perfect. Everything is perfect. It's amazing. So I made the decision way back when, while I was in Colorado. I said, okay, if this man can change my life as drastically as he did, then I'm not going to try and reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to follow him. I'm going to do everything he does. I'm going to say everything he says. I'm going to read everything that he has read. And I made the decision at that point that every time Dr. Huggins turned around, I was going to be under his armpit, grabbing as much knowledge as I could from him. And I did that for, well, let's see, he's been gone now for 8 years. So I did that for 22 years. I
Mm-hmm.
followed Dr. Huggins around, and I finally after about 10 years, he asked me if I would start helping him teach the courses. And I started teaching the classes with him. And then after that, after a while, he just said, "You know what? Why don't you just teach the whole class?" I said, "Okay, I'm fine with that." And so then I started teaching the whole class. And unfortunately, 8 years ago, he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But just before he passed away, he made a beautiful video. I know Anita has a copy of it. I don't have a copy of it, but she does. And in this video, he said that he had taught many dentists. He says, but none of them had followed him and followed his protocol as tightly as I did.
Okay.
So then it was just very emotionally moving because he literally passed the baton to me and said,
Mm-hmm.
"You will carry on my work." And when he was ill, I promised him I would carry on his work. I would carry on his legacy. Um, what I did not know is that it was going to be with Anita, that the two of us were going to be doing this together as a team.
Mm-hmm.
So I always introduce Anita as my partner in crime, and she's the one who does all the digging and finds the research for me. I'm the one who studies the research and makes the changes and finds out what's the best way to treat people.
Yeah.
And what I've learned over the years is that dentistry can be very dangerous. What we call conventional dentistry, what the dentist is doing day in, day out in their offices, is not necessarily good for everybody. It may be okay for some people. Some people can have mercury fillings in their mouth
Mm-hmm.
and still live to be 75, 80 years old. There are actually people who can drink, whiskey every day, vodka every day, whatever it is they want. They smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day and they still live to be 80, 85. There are not too many of them, but there are some people who can handle that kind of toxic burden and still live into their 80s. Most of us cannot.
Yeah.
Most people, if they have mercury fillings in their head, if they have root canals in their head, if they have cavitations, if they have implants, they are affected by it, whether they know it or not. They
Mm-hmm.
are affected by it. And of course, it's different for each person, the level of effectiveness. But for me, had I not met Dr. Hal Huggins, had I not had my fillings removed and my root canals taken out, there's no doubt, I would not be sitting here talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been gone a long time ago, a long, long time ago. So I'm very, very grateful. I'm very, very grateful. I continued studying. My husband and I went to Capital University in Washington, D.C. We got a second doctorate in integrative medicine. So it helps us to really understand blood chemistries. It helps us to understand nutrition. It helps us to understand acupuncture, herbology, homeopathy, colon hydrotherapy. We learned it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been quite a trip. It really has. It's been a wonderful trip. I'm very,
Wow.
very grateful.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's how I
Thank.
got into biological dentistry. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It
know
was.
you mentioned that you knew Dr. Boyd Haley, you know Dr. Boyd Haley,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that
Yeah. I
you've
know he was
interviewed
also
him.
my professor. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So Dr. Boyd Haley was giving a lecture one day. This
Mm-hmm.
is years after I'm already a biological dentist.
Okay.
And I'm searching to find out why were my root canals so bad that they gave me cancer? I didn't believe that all root canals were bad. I thought it was just mine. Only mine. My root canals were bad. And so I'm in a lecture room with Dr. Boyd Haley, and he's talking about enzyme degradation.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, there are things poisons that we take into our body or that we're exposed to in the environment, that once it enters into our body, it destroys the enzymes that our body needs to function. So, for instance, if you want to, let's see, you want oxygen to go into your lungs, breathe in, you want that oxygen to travel through your bloodstream, and then you want that oxygen to go into the cells. Well, for every single one of those steps, there's an enzyme that's required. A plus B goes to C in the body only if there's an enzyme along with A plus B. If there's no enzyme, A plus B can go to C, but it would take years. So we don't want that. Every reaction in our body requires an enzyme for its speed and its efficiency. You know, if I was to take my finger and poke your eye, you would want your eyes to blink right away. You would not want your eye to try to figure it out. Well, let's see. We need to contract the muscle, and let's see, we need to rush some blood to the area so he can close his eyelid. You no, no, no. By that time, my finger is well in your eye and it's going to hurt, right? So we have enzymes that make our body work much faster. And as I start to approach your eye, those enzymes are already at work. They're already getting ready to close that eyelid as quick as they possibly can
Okay.
and keep you from getting damaged. So, getting back to Dr. Boyd Haley, he's giving a lecture about enzyme degradation in the body. Well, it was very interesting. I went up to him afterwards and introduced myself, and I said, Dr. Haley, if I was to send you a root canal tooth, could you tell me if it was an enzyme destroyer? And he thought for a moment and he said, yeah, sure, you could do that. All right, all right. So I sent the teeth to Boyd Haley. He tested these teeth against the 5 most basic enzymes in the body. Called me up 2 weeks later on the telephone and says, Blanche, this is Dr. Haley. Oh, hi. Hey, how's it going? Did you get to test the root canal teeth? Yeah, listen, I got to tell you, you have to get out of Scranton right away. Why? He says, there's something terrible in Scranton. I don't know what it is, but it's terrible. All of the root canal teeth you sent me, they were all toxic. Every single one was toxic and destroyed all of my enzymes. You've got to get out of Scranton. Hmm. Well, Dr. Haley, I have to tell you something. Not one of those teeth was from Scranton. I made sure that I took a tooth from a patient from Massachusetts, another one from Connecticut, another one from New York, another one from Pennsylvania, another one from New Jersey. I don't think that there was any teeth at all that came from Scranton. It's the root canal tooth itself that is toxic. I said, so the reason I sent this to you is because I wanted to know if all root canal teeth are toxic. So now what we need to do is set up some kind of test to test the teeth ahead of time to see if they're toxic or not. And he thought about that for a moment and he said, yes, I can do that. He actually wound up developing a whole lab. I don't know if he spent any time talking to you about it. He developed a whole laboratory process and he began to ask dentists all over the country to send their root canal teeth to Dr. Haley. Well, we did. As a matter of fact, we did that for 10 years. 10 years. The laboratory was testing root canals. And after 10 years, he called me up again to tell me that he was very sorry, but that he needed to close the laboratory. Why? You don't understand, Dr. Haley. We biological dentists, we need to have something that we can hang our hat on. We need to have something that proves that the root canal teeth we take out on patients' mouths, we need to be able to prove that they were toxic. He said, well, Blanche, he says, this is the problem. This is a university. And in a university, he says, we're always looking to find new information. That's why we do science. We need new information. After 10 years, we did not have a single root canal tooth that was not toxic. They were all toxic. So, as a university, we can no longer continue to study them. Wow. They were all toxic. Every single one was toxic, which meant that every person that had a root canal tooth in their head was receiving toxins from that root canal tooth that was destroying the very enzymes they needed to be able to function and function efficiently. So if you were one of those patients and you had that root canal tooth in your head, when I went to put my finger in your eye, you wouldn't have the enzymes needed. And you just might very well get poked. No kidding. That would hurt. That would hurt. So now we have a new problem. We have no way to test these root canal teeth so
Hmm.
that we can justify to the dental boards, the American Dental Association, and all of the people that look down their noses at us. We need to justify why we're extracting root canals. So Dr. Huggins decided, I don't know how this came to him, but he was a genius. And I know a lot of information came to him in the wee hours of the morning. So probably came to him in the morning. He woke up, he probably, this, I'm making this up now, he probably woke up one morning and said, aha, DNA can be detected almost anywhere. So why don't we look for the DNA of the really bad microorganisms? Why don't we look for the DNA of those microorganisms inside of a root canal tooth? And so he started a laboratory called Dental DNA. Wonderful. So now, oh, the dentists are happy again. As biological dentists, we have a place now to send our extracted root canals. We send them to Dr. Hal Huggins. He tests them in the laboratory and then sends this horrific list of microorganisms that are inside the root canals. And so, as to make a long story short, and I didn't even know I was going to get into root canals on this talk. To make a long story short, I wound up purchasing the laboratory. I changed the name to DNA Connections. And to this day, we are still testing root canals. And to this day, we have never had a root canal that was healthy.
Wow.
Never. Never, never, never. So I'm sorry. I kind of got away with my whole little talk here.
No,
So if
it's
you have
okay.
anything special you want to discuss, I'll be
You,
free to
you,
talk about that. But
yeah, it's
that's
okay.
where we're at.
We I think with all those people that are already interviewed, we had someone. She's the director of Melissa lab. To make some allergies test
Mhm.
because for sure Mercury is also creating allergies, metal allergies. So this is also a topic that we already talk. And no, it's perfect. It's perfect. I'm just going to show you to show this to the auditory that this is your last book, yeah? So
Yes, that's the book that Anita and I wrote, and
yes,
it's called Chew on This, meaning that's an English idiom meaning to think about it. Chew on
uh-huh.
this. To think about it. Chew on this, but don't swallow. In other words, don't accept everything that your dentist tells you as gospel truth because it may not be gospel truth to you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
need to be able to understand the whole both sides of the story. And unfortunately, most doctors, I know they're very busy. They have a lot of work to do. Most doctors will simply tell the patient, you need to have a filling. You need a root canal. You need this. You need that. But they don't explain to the patient.
Hmm.
Number one, why do they need it? Number two, what are the ramifications of having that procedure done? Is it always good? Is it good for everybody? Not always. So that's why I wrote the book. I wanted to educate the whole world about dentistry so that then
Perfect.
when they go into a dental office, they can ask an intelligent question.
Hmm.
and then make an intelligent decision about whether or not they want the treatment that's being proposed. Because the treatment is for them, it's for the patient. The
Yeah.
treatment is not for the dentist. It's not because the dentist wants to do a root canal that day or the dentist would like to do two crowns so that he can meet his quota for the week. No, 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 no. The work is not for the dentist, the work is for you. So you need to be an intelligent consumer. You need to know what questions to ask when you go into the dental chair. And you need to be cautious. It's a very a dental office where they're giving fluoride to everybody and they're putting in mercury fillings. That kind of a space can be probably one of the most dangerous spaces to be in.
Okay, okay, perfect. We have a special guest today. So, because this book was written with someone that we already knew on this channel, so I'm very happy also to have on my channel Anita. So, hi, Anita, and very happy to have
Hi,
you on this.
thank you for having me.
And it's perfect that perhaps you can give me a little bit about how you was involved in this book, and after for sure, Dr. Gruby, we will you have you back on this show to talk all together about this stuff, huh?
Well, I had met Hal long before I met Blanche, but I had known about Blanche and we had spoken by phone over the years. And it wasn't until she had opened up her clinic in California with a mutual colleague. And she called me up and she said, come to the opening of the clinic. And I said, oh, it's so far because in California, when you're going north, I was living in Orange County and her clinic was very far north. And so I said, okay, but I'm going to come anyways. So I went up to the clinic and it was a beautiful opening. And we had a small time to talk. And she asked me, she said, I really need to write a book. And would you be interested in doing the research and helping me? And I said, let me think about it because at the time I was very much engaged in all these other Mercury projects. And I told her, I said, I have to think because in order for me to give 100%, I know I have to commit to that. I'm not going to give you 50%. So couple days later, I called her up and I said, you know what? I really want to do this with you. So that was the beginning of our odyssey. And it seems like a lifetime ago. And we've done so many things. It's unbelievable. But what I can tell you about Dr. Blanche is her commitment to the patients and to do it the right way, which is, you cannot compromise when you know what a full dental revision is. And that's something that Hal taught her. And the difference between doing what she does versus everything else, like, oh, I'm going to take out my root canals and that's it. Or, I think I may have cavitations and I'm just going to do that, but not doing the whole thing. You will never achieve what you
Hmm.
will achieve with a full revision. So, part of the research on this book, we went through everything. I mean, my God, um, dentistry is a very complex subject, and unfortunately, it's not looked at as something as serious as what it is. It's the foundation of your whole body health, and without proper dentistry being done after you've probably been butchered by conventional dentists, you won't achieve the success in regaining as much health as you can unless you go to somebody that has the high skill as Blanche. And it's just the facts. I tell people it's not my fault. And while Blanche teaches other dentists, do they really commit to doing all? Because it is an all or nothing thing. And
Hmm.
when I have the opportunity to talk about this, it's always going to be to educate people to the highest level that will actually help their health.
Right.
So yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity for us to have both of you today because I know, Anita, how you work and travel the world to talk to the UN and to talk to the international delegations and to trying to, yeah, to make countries are moving and to go to the path on to ban mercury use. So can you give us some updates about what happens perhaps in Africa or in other countries concerning the use of mercury in dentistry?
Yes, Dr. Blanche and I have been invited to write a paper for a compilation that's going to be specifically for the Minamata Convention on Mercury Treaty. And that treaty started in 2002 as the Global Mercury Assessment, and then it went on to the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee and eventually became the Minamata Convention on Mercury Treaty in 2013. In 2017, it went into force, and now it's about implementation. Well, the curious thing throughout this whole treaty process and working on this paper with Dr. Blanche, you go back in time and you start to look at the material again and the history, and it's so corrupt. That is what I can say. The corruption is so deep that sometimes you wonder how on earth are these people still promoting that it's safe and it's an effective dental restorative treatment and so on, when it absolutely there is nothing to say that it is. In other words, it's this continuous lie that's been perpetuated for almost 200 years now, saying it's safe, it's safe, it's safe, and then you believe it, but the reality is completely the opposite. It is not safe. It's never been safe. And if you go all the way back in time, you'll see that the original people that were working with mercury when it was brought to the United States, they knew that the dental surgeons would say, okay, we're going to have you sign an oath of ethics to say dental surgeons were actually dental doctors and dentists as a practice. And the dental craftsmen were barbers and they shoot horses and so on. And the dental surgeons had their members sign an oath of ethics saying, we won't use mercury. And the dental craftsman said, oh, but we can make so much money. It's easy. We have the capacity to do a lot of teeth and we can make a lot of money. And that was the foundation of the American Dental Association. So, from the get-go, it was corrupt and people knew it, but money overrode the patient's health, basically. And we've been in that treadmill ever since. And as I'm looking at the latest, it's called the Conference of the Parties, the COPs, which is where we are in the treaty process now. It's about the treaty was ratified in 2017, and now it's about implementation. And people are submitting what they're doing to follow the treaty in regards to dental mercury. Well, dental mercury in the treaty is the only product that's implanted in the human body, and it's the only product in the treaty that's on a phase down approach, not a ban, not a phase out. There was horrific negotiations going on when the treaty was getting completed, and we could not get even a phase out. It was a phase down. And that's where we are today. And this is, again, when you can have a country like Indonesia that has a population, I think it's the 5th largest in the world, ban mercury in dentistry, and you have the Philippines ban mercury in dentistry. I mean, these are highly populated countries. The European Union put a 15 and under and pregnant women or women that are childbearing age to not get mercury. But what about the rest of the population? So while they have some regulations going on now, there's still not a straight out ban. The United States didn't ban it. There's nothing in their anything that they sent to the Secretariat, any of their provisional documents. They are not discussing a ban. Neither is Canada, and it's criminal because we are the developed countries and we have more ability to do this than any other countries in the world, and yet we're still not banning it. So that's about that.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Perhaps. Okay, I'm going to Swift. So go back to Dr. Grube. So yeah, about what Anita said about this worldwide problem, because
Yes.
it's a worldwide problem. It's mercury in the dental industry and in other
Right.
yes places. Um, do you see? Are you kind of optimist in this way since all those years? Do you see evolutions, good evolutions with all your colleagues? All the dentists who wants to involved in the biological dentistry.
Oh, I don't see them becoming biological dentists. No. Um, there's maybe a very, very small percentage. I mean, yes, I'm seeing more because our population is increasing, but the percentage is still very, very small.
Yeah, small.
Um, yeah, it's small, and there are more and more dentists that are not putting in mercury fillings just because they are ugly. The patients are asking for a white filling, so that's their reason for doing it.
Exactly.
And as that increases, eventually you will get to the point where very few dentists are putting in mercury fillings. That is probably going to be true. You have more dentists now extracting root canals and instead placing an implant in. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not in favor of implants either, but they're certainly less toxic. I think, I'm not 100% sure, they might be less toxic than a root canal. And so those are the kind of changes you see going on in dentistry, but it's a very, very, very slow process. And so what's upsetting to Anita and I is that while this process is progressing a lot slowly, there are still thousands and thousands of people who are dying prematurely unnecessarily because they've been poisoned, because their dentist is one of the ones still putting in mercury fillings, because their dentist is still one of the ones putting in root canals.
Hmm.
So, yes, probably in the year 2080, maybe if the planet is still here, maybe in the year 2080, there will be no more mercury fillings or root canals, but that's too long to wait. It really is too long to wait. We need to see some changes, and we need to see them now or yesterday would have been better.
Yeah, yeah. Do you train dentists all over the world for with your
Yes,
protocol with Huggins protocol too?
yes, yes. We did a very extensive training in Brazil, of all places. Brazil has as many dentists in their country as the United States and Europe put together. In Brazil, a dentist becomes a dentist by going to high school first, grade school, then high school, and then after high school they go directly to dental school and they learn to become a dentist in just 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
So the dentists in Brazil, and I don't mean to be insulting in any way, but they're more mechanical dentists. They don't understand necessarily the science. So it was a little bit of a challenge to go to Brazil and try to explain to them the science.
Hmm.
They didn't have chemistry. They didn't have organic chemistry. They didn't have physiology. They didn't have all the subjects that American dentists have even before they get to dental school. You have to have a bachelor's degree in some kind of science before you go to dental school. Not so in Brazil. In Brazil, they go right from high school to dental school. And so now you have dentists in Brazil who are putting in mercury fillings. And so we had the challenge of trying to explain to them the toxicity of mercury and how they were to remove the mercury fillings from patients very carefully. See,
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem is, you know, number one problem is having the mercury put in your mouth to begin with.
Hmm.
But then the bigger problem is taking it out of your mouth. If the patient becomes aware of the fact that the mercury is toxic and now they want to take it out, well, now we have a bigger problem because you can't just go to any dentist and say, "Listen, drill this filling out, take it out and put a white composite filling in for me." Because if that dentist is not trained,
Hmm.
then they're not going to take all of the precautions that you must take in order to take a mercury filling out. So that was our challenge in Brazil, and I think we went to about 5 different states within the country, 5 different places to teach as many dentists as we possibly could. And I'm looking forward, hopefully, to going back to Brazil and going to some other countries where we were invited to go to Malaysia, and they wanted us to go to 50 different clinics on different islands all over Malaysia.
This is great.
And just as
Yeah.
we're literally packing and getting ready to go to Malaysia, COVID broke out.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Okay.
that whole trip was canceled.
Yeah.
But so in answer to your question, yes, I will go any place on the planet I need to go to teach dentists the toxicity of mercury and how to remove it safely. Because
Yeah.
to have a filling drilled out without a rubber dam, without water, without oxygen up your nose, without being completely covered is
Mm.
probably one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Yeah.
It's very similar to somebody discovering that they have asbestos in their house and then just take a hammer and start banging on the walls and rip
Yeah.
out that asbestos and throw it in the garbage can. That's probably the worst thing you can do. When you have asbestos in your house, you have to call over a hazmat team,
Exact.
and they have to take out that asbestos very carefully so that
Exact.
nobody gets exposed and nobody breathes it in. It's the same way in our dental office. When I
Yeah.
walk into the room ready to take out a mercury filling, I look like a hazmat team member. I've got a
Yeah.
gas mask on, my whole body is covered, the patient is completely covered. They
Yeah.
have IV vitamin C flowing through their bloodstream. They have a rubber dam. Their whole body is covered. The only part that's
During
sticking out,
the
yeah, during
treatment, during the safe removal, the patient is with vitamin C intravenous.
absolutely.
Wow.
I've never
Okay.
taken out a mercury filling without having IV vitamin C flowing through the patient's bloodstream, because there's
In the same
no
time.
matter how many because no matter how many precautions we take,
Hmm.
we thought at first we thought the rubber dam was good. The rubber dam, and it is good. The rubber dam would protect the patient. Well, then Boyd Haley told us, Dr. Boyd Haley said, guess what? The mercury gas goes right through the rubber dam. It
Oh.
protects the patient from the particles.
Yeah.
That's it. End of story. The gas still goes through the rubber dam.
Wow.
So, okay, now, so we have that problem. So this is right from the beginning, Dr. Huggins said, do not think that everything that we do is perfect. Somebody smarter than us will come along and show us where we're erring. And so that's exactly what happened. And so, because Dr. Huggins said, do not think that we're perfect, do not think that we know everything. It's a very toxic material. We have no guarantee that the patient will not absorb some mercury, either particles or gas. So, therefore, we must have IV vitamin C flowing through the bloodstream. So,
Okay.
why is that? Well, because our body has a protein that's produced and it's a natural detoxifier. It's called glutathione.
Glutathione.
Our
Yeah.
body produces your own glutathione, and glutathione, when it sees toxic material, and that toxic material can be metal, it can be bacteria,
Hmm.
viruses, yeast, fungi, anything. When glutathione sees that in the bloodstream, it grabs the toxic material, takes that toxic material out to the kidneys, out to the intestines, and gives it a good swift kick in the butt and says,
Yeah.
bye bye.
Hmm.
But that glutathione had to pay the price in order to do that.
They need vitamin
Meaning,
C.
yeah,
Reduce,
the
right? The reduced
glutathione
one.
lost its electron. It had an electron, it lost its electron in the process of getting rid of that mercury. So in chemistry, if something loses an electron, we say it is oxidized.
Yes.
Okay, when you lose an electron, that material is oxidized. So glutathione loses its electron, it's oxidized, and now oxidized glutathione can do nothing. It cannot go swim around the body, go up to the mouth and get another molecule of mercury and get rid of it because it is now oxidized glutathione. So if you have vitamin C flowing through the bloodstream, Well, it's a very interesting thing about vitamin C. Vitamin C is primarily an electron donor. In other words, it floats around the bloodstream. It loves handing out electrons, kind of like a Santa Claus giving free presents to everybody. It just, somebody on the street handing out money all the time. So when vitamin C is flowing through the bloodstream and it sees glutathione that has lost its electron, the vitamin C donates an electron back to the glutathione. Now that glutathione molecule can go back, take another molecule of mercury, and get rid of it. So we have an expression that we use in science. We say glutathione levels are maintained by vitamin C, meaning the glutathione levels that are good and that have plenty of electrons are maintained because the vitamin C is constantly donating electrons to the glutathione. So because we have no guarantee that everything that we do could be 100% perfect and safe for the patient, we make sure the patient has IV vitamin C flowing through their bloodstream because that IV vitamin C is going to
Wow.
donate electrons to all of your glutathione, and then the glutathione can help you to do the detoxification. So, IV vitamin C is a must if you're having mercury fillings removed, if you're having a root canal extracted, if you're having cavitation surgery. You
Okay.
must have vitamin C
Okay, but it's during the treatment or is it
during
after?
the treatment. Yes.
Ah, during the treatment. Okay, so it's on live. So the patient is plugged.
Yes. In other words, somebody once asked Dr. Hal Huggins, when is the best time to give IV vitamin C? And Dr. Huggins did one of these. He said, I think the best time is before, during, and after. So we said, okay, we got
Okay.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Before, during, and after. Now, obviously, if the patient cannot, for some reason, usually the reason is the dentist is not qualified to give an IV. If the patient cannot get IV during the amalgam removal, then the next best thing to do is get the IV vitamin C just prior to
Mm-hmm.
having your mercury fillings removed.
Okay. Okay, great. Wow.
Because then you will still have lots of vitamin C flowing through your bloodstream for a short period of time. It comes out very quickly, but just prior to your visit, literally, if you could go get an IV vitamin C, walk out of that office and go to the next office and get your mercury fillings taken out. That would be the next best thing to do.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
before, so that you have plenty of glutathione that has plenty of electrons and it can do the job.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing because now a lot of dentists know about mercury intoxications, but they just say
Mhm.
to their patients, they say, "Oh yeah, we made a safe removal, with the rubber, and some
I use the rubber dam. That's
and
it.
some few aspiration, but that's it, and
Yeah,
and
that's
so
it.
and most of those patients, they are able to be, more ill than before about after that. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you cannot find a well-trained, good biological dentist, you're better off not taking your mercury fillings
exactly.
out.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, leave them alone. Yeah,
yeah,
leave them alone. Because
yeah,
you literally, there's an expression in English, the expression is you're going to jump from the frying pan to the fire.
yeah.
If you just go ahead and take it out by any dentist, you're literally jumping from the frying pan to the fire. Things will get worse for you.
Yeah, so okay, there is many, many, many things we can talk, and I think perhaps we will have for sure perhaps another interview with
Oh,
uh, with
great.
you, yeah,
Good,
with you
good, good.
both, and Anita too. I really want to make a next interview about all those updates that are coming, and also for the preparation for the COP5, who's coming, in Geneva at the end of
Right.
2023, and
Oh,
I hope that you will be there like last time. And Dr. Grube, thank you a
yes.
lot, and for sure,
You're welcome.
I will bring you, both of you, in Switzerland, because Switzerland, it's a very interesting country because they are very wide, very open mind with all alternative
Good.
medicines, and also on the topic of mercury intoxication, and so also with Dr. Gachet with his Rhône Dental
Good.
Clinic in Geneva. So, and he already made or already do some very good safe removal, but I think we can
Good.
bring also all the part about the root canals and to be
Right.
more professional, because at the end of the day, when we think about when a patient's is ill, and who is the first person? He's not going to see a dentist about his health issues. He's going to see a doctor, and doctors, family doctors, simply doctors, in little town or other places, they really need to understand about mercury intoxications first, because
Right.
most of the time that when I'm with my patients, like I told you, it's they just don't realize that their health issues perhaps have a link about their mouth, and
That
about
is
the
correct.
mercury, about the root canals now, because about all the information you gave us today.
Correct.
So yeah, I think it's doctors need also to be more involved with the
Right.
dentist
Right.
part,
That is correct. Both ways.
both
Yeah.
ways. Yeah.
Many physicians do not. They not only do not know the connection between teeth and the body, but they don't even look inside the patient's mouth and look at the teeth. They tell the patient to open their mouth and say ah, and what they're doing is they're looking at the back of the throat.
Yeah, or the
They don't
tongue.
look at the teeth. Yeah, they don't look at the teeth. And I've had physicians say to me, we don't look at the teeth because we don't know what we're looking at.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, so the physicians need to be educated. They need
Yeah.
to know what it is they see when they look inside somebody's mouth. And then, of course, the dentists need to be educated even more so, because people go to the dentist more often than they go to the physician. They usually don't go to a doctor until they're really sick, but they go to the dentist. Most people go to the dentist every 6 months,
Exact.
If I
right?
could jump in,
And so if the dentist is well educated and can look in the mouth and sees problems, they can alert the patient to some of the illnesses that they have way before their physician does. Way
Yeah.
before the physician does. The dentist will notice that there's changes in the person's gums, there's changes in their mouth, there's changes in their cavities. They'll know that there's a problem way before the physician will.
Yeah. What do you think this about Anita? Huh? What is your
so
point
I,
about that?
I have to make a comment on this one. Um, it is so few medical doctors, even integrative doctors, that make that connection between oral health and whole body
Mhm.
health. It's really a tragedy, and we're hoping to completely change the paradigm on this, because without we're going to be chasing ourselves to the grave faster.
Mhm.
Blanche just said is absolutely true, and curiously, while we're doing this research, several papers came up where they are now saying that dentists have to be the front line of health. Because literally they are. And this push to have these dentists actually know something and be the front line of medicine and the health of the patient is going to really transform the way dentistry is practiced as well as medicine. But it's not the other way around. The medical doctor shouldn't be sending patients to the dentist. The dentist should be sending patients to the medical doctor. And
Exactly.
that's really what the disconnect is. And it's
Right.
been like that, but the whole system in my mind has been set up that way. And I've been saying this since I found out I was mercury poisoned from my own teeth. The dentist makes you sick, you're on the medical treadmill, so you're in the box. And that is the system until today. And hopefully we're here to change it. And with you putting out this information, we'll share it on all our social media. But it's imperative that people understand that if you get sick with anything at all, the first place you need to go is to look inside your mouth by somebody at the level that Dr. Blanche is. Because just because somebody says that they're a holistic dentist or a biological dentist or a mercury-free dentist, it doesn't mean that they know everything, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a high level, well-educated biological dentist, especially if they're in a health crisis.
Right.
And the science shows it. It shows it all over the place. It's all there.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you a lot, both of you. And yeah, I hope that perhaps I will make a kind of swift about this discussion, and because about what you said about your life was amazing, because I think people need to know you better. And Anita, thank you also that you was on this show, and for sure that. We will see us together in Switzerland, and we will make a live stream, and yeah, thank
Cool.
you a lot, and
Very
take
good.
care, and thank you about
Thank
all
you.
what you do. Okay?
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
au revoir.
Au revoir.
Bye bye.